Good morning. I think we're all up and running now. Sorry for the slight delay. Had a few technical difficulties getting myself up and running on it. It is the first time I've done it. But I think we've managed to get everything up and running and sorted now. Yeah, again, sorry for the delay. Um, just a little bit about why we're doing the live. Um, we've been part of the Agents Here to Help movement, which has been put together since the COVID crisis, actually, while lots of agents are at home and lots of agents have taken to producing sort of video content to help buyers and sellers and landlords and investors over this period, and to not necessarily get too in the weeds about what's happening right now in the world, but to actually look ahead and to provide useful help and advice about the whole moving process. So there's been some great talks and things so far from really good speakers. Running over various different parts of the home moving process. So my sort of topic to run over today was what questions should I ask when I get an offer from the agent? House has gone on the market, may have had one viewing, may have had 25 viewings, and you get that offer from the agent. What do you do? So I wanted to give you some sort of tips and advice and sort of the way in which to go about building the information so that you are in the best position to make a decision on that offer, and to maybe help from strengthen your negotiating position. So the first thing that you need to establish when getting an offer from your agent is actually what the position is of the buyer. And by position, we mean what's their movement position. So do they need to sell a property? Are they a first-time buyer? Are they a cash buyer, an investor? Are they remortgaging to buy the property? So all of these things have a big effect on how quickly somebody will be able to move on to a property, and could limit their sort of funding and how far they could go with the purchase. So it's really important to establish at the beginning from your agent what is their position. Secondly, you need to understand how they're going to finance the purchase. So if they do require a sale on a property, has that property sold? If they have got a remortgage in place because it's maybe an investment and they're remortgaging a family home to buy a first investment, has that remortgage been approved? Do they have the money yet? And if they're a first-time buyer, have they been to see the broker, the mortgage broker or the bank, and do they have an agreement in principle to establish whether they can actually afford to purchase your property? So finding out how they're going to finance the purchase is important. Mortgage. The majority of purchases in the market will require some form of mortgage, whether it be large or small. This is generally a fair proportion of buyers that will require a mortgage. In the process of speaking to the agent, you need to find out, has this been checked? So generally as an estate agent, you will talk to a mortgage broker that the client has confirmed that they're using. Establish, have they had an agreement in principle, or it's often abbreviated to an AIP. So yeah, AIP is agreement in principle. It's basically a form of checking that the bank or building society will do on a client, going over some basic information that will give them an indication as to whether they can afford a loan. And then they will give them this agreement in principle. It's not a mortgage offer and it's not guaranteed, but it gives you a fair understanding that they've gone through the process with a bank or a mortgage broker to establish whether they can actually afford the property. So it puts a bit of strength in their position. And your agent should go away and establish whether that work has been done and talk to the broker to make sure that, yes, they can actually afford what they're looking to do. How much deposit are they putting down? Quite important to understand. People might not necessarily always give you an exact figure on it, but generally you might get a percentage from somebody, whether that be 10, 20, 30% of a purchase price that they have as a deposit to put down. If they state that they are a cash buyer and that they don't need funds, this does need to be checked, because people often get this part wrong and they say that they're a cash buyer, but actually they mean that they will be cash when they've sold their property. Therefore, they actually need to sell a property to buy, so they're not a cash buyer. Sometimes investors might say they're a cash buyer, but they actually need to remortgage a property before having enough money to go forth and purchase the next property. So there is a mortgage discussion that needs to happen. So if they state that they're a cash buyer, your agent should establish that position and get a proof of funds to confirm that the money is available, including the stamp duty and the related costs, so that they can successfully go forward and purchase the property. If the client has a related sale, so if they're selling a property and it's under offer, your agent needs to go away and find out the full information of the chain. So they need to establish if it has been sold, who it's been sold to, and is there a subsequent sale beyond that. And that's how a chain builds up over time, so going from one to the other. And your agent's job is to get to the very bottom of that and understand the full picture, so that when they are proposing the offer to yourself, they have a full understanding of who's involved. And if you have a choice of buyers, sometimes establishing how much of a chain is involved is a big factor on who you choose to move forward with. As generally, the more people in a chain, the more people there is to change their mind, and the more chances there are of something to go wrong. So the risks do escalate as a chain builds and more people get involved. What your agent will do in order to establish that information is talk to the subsequent agents below in the chain. So that's how an agent will do a chain check. When you get the offer, it's important that you get all of this information up front so that you can look at it realistically. Offers up until now have been relatively strong, and people haven't really been bidding super hard. Obviously, you do get some people every now and again bidding quite hard and looking for big discounts, but it isn't always the case. And sometimes when you have multiple offers, you need to establish this background so that you can see who might be that best person for you, and it might not always be the highest price. When you get the offer and it's presented to you, you need to establish what your expectations were for the property. You might have had a range of valuations at the beginning. What were the range of valuations, and how closely does this offer align to your expectations and what the professionals in the market have given you an indication of what the property should achieve? How long has the property been on the market? If it's been on the market for 6 or 9 months, the market may have moved, and it may be worth taking your agent's opinion on board at that point to establish how is the market now from when we first listed at this price, and how close do you feel that the offer is to realistic market expectations? How many viewings have you had? You might get a great offer on the first viewing, but if the estate agent has got a number of other people that want to come through the door, it may be worth just pausing before making a full decision on the offer if it's not quite what you're looking to achieve. If it is what you're looking to achieve and it helps you reach your goals, then some of the best buyers in the market come very quickly. So those things need to be considered. How long have you been on the market? Again, was just another thing to consider. If you have been on the market for a long time and you've got an offer that's a little bit below your expectations, it might be worth looking at other ways in which you can bring the deal together. So if you're buying onwardly, is there potentially a discount to be made there? Could you ask your agent to talk to the agent above, or the one that you want to buy, explain the situation, explain what you have achieved in terms of an offer, and how it then reflects on what you can afford to pay for the onward purchase? So sometimes we find when you can bring these two together, you can make the deal work. And at the end of the process, you're looking to achieve a move. And if this allows you to do that, then maybe finding those little gaps is worth doing. At the point of acceptance, you need to have decided on a solicitor to use. We recommend a couple of local solicitors to our business, and we highly recommend that is a good process to look at. The reason that we do that is They know the area very well. They know some of the intricacies and differences that might come up within sort of searches and local searches, as they've seen these things before, and can sometimes provide better advice at that point. Also, there are lots of paperwork that goes back and forth between yourself and a solicitor, ID documents, checking, and things like that. So if they are local to you and you can just pop in and see them, that does make life a lot easier. I have always done it as a purchaser, and I've always gone and visited the solicitor when all of the paperwork is ready and needing signing. I find them running through that paperwork is far more useful than me trying to have a read at the multiple pages that come through. And getting their understanding on the inquiries that they've raised and the answers that they've received. So again, having somebody local that you can pop to is a benefit for me. Once you've negotiated the sale and you've come to an agreement of what you will accept, your agent will issue you with an offer letter. So there will be an offer acceptance letter that will come through to you. And then you need to go away and instruct your solicitors. You can also instruct your solicitors much earlier in the process, but most people don't generally want to part with the money until they know that they've got a deal in place. So once you've instructed your solicitor, they'll send you through the initial paperwork. Be prepared for this. There is a lot of paperwork that arrives in the first batch from a solicitor. There are a number of forms. There are 2 large property information forms and generally a fixtures and fittings form, as well as the terms of business that come from the solicitor. These will take you some time and prepare for that to go through it. One of the things we always recommend is that you start digging out all of the certification and paperwork to do with the house as early as possible, so that you've got all of the documents to hand to be able to fill out the paperwork effectively and send it all off to your solicitor. Often you'll still have somewhere the initial pack of paperwork that came when you initially bought the house, and some of that information can be really useful as well when filling out the property information questionnaire and the general information that's required about the property. Time. I think a lot of people sometimes have a slightly misguided approach to how long this might take. When you are in a purchase, it's really exciting. Once you've got a sale agreed, you've found the property that you absolutely love, there's nothing stopping you. You want to be in that property as quickly as possible. But what we often say to people is that their expectations of how quickly the move can come can cause a lot of extra stress. And understanding that the process does take time. We wish it was quicker, and we do everything we can to make it quicker, but it does take time. There are the averages ranging from sort of 11 to 15 weeks between a sale agreed and an exchange and completion taking place. And I think you just need to prepare yourself over that period. Start preparing for the move over that time, but don't put yourself under undue stress thinking that this will all be done in 4 weeks, because there'll be no end of people down the pub that tell you that they've moved in 2 weeks and it was easy, because invariably it's a bit longer than that, and it does take a bit of time. But I think understanding that from the outset is important to give you a better steer as to how long the process can take, and like I say, trying to relieve a bit of stress. So allow yourself to prepare for this period and over that time. So sort of front to back on a quick version, that's sort of what I've got to say about dealing with offers and how to approach it. Found it useful. If you've got any questions, please always drop me a message through to the David Lee Facebook, and I'll be happy to reply. Thanks very much.